We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Thursday today. We're moving through this week, the week before Christmas. This is one of those weeks where some things are going on and other things aren't going on. I always say the 2 weeks, the week leading up to and the week between leading up to Christmas and Christmas up to New Year's are just wasted weeks if you're in business because nobody's really working, nobody's really doing anything. They may go into work, but there's not much going on. And of course, Congress is out on vacation for 3 fucking weeks. So uh, it makes it harder for things to talk about. That said, I have the good fortune of Eric joining us on the show today. He's been on a number of times. Always great to have him on the show. He's got some great insights. He's our correspondent from Iowa. And frankly, Eric, thank you for joining us. And I'm just so proud of the fact that you're willing to admit you're from Iowa.
Oh, thanks for having me, Mike. Don't mind admitting I'm from Iowa. But some days, man, it's rough.
I know it's rough, and I have to give you shit. I'm required by state law because I'm in Minnesota and we are adversarial. Uh, we're giving each other shit, like the old joke. The best thing to come out of Iowa is 35W or 35. Yeah. So anyway, it's always good to have Eric with us, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about that's kind of happening now. But the one thing I wanted to bring up is because you're there, is we're like 3-4 weeks away from the Iowa caucus. It's a big deal for the Republicans, not so much the Democrats, but for the life of me, when I look at polls and hear about things and the way people are talking about, I have no clue what's going on in Iowa. I don't even know who's going to win that fucking thing. It seems like Trump, but then I'm not sure because he's pissing everybody off.
It's hard to tell. The Iowa caucus is always weird. For those that don't know, the caucuses are not a traditional vote. You don't go in, you don't write your name on a vote, on a ballot or anything. You don't, fill in the circle for the right candidate. I haven't actually been to one, but I was going to go last time. Had done a lot of research into it, and basically you all meet in a room in your area, and basically you go and they have different room parts of the room, all like you'd be at a high school gymnasium, and they'd
Right.
have one spot for Trump, one spot for DeSantis, one spot for Nikki Haley, and they'd say, okay, we're gonna vote, and you kind of go stand in your spot by the candidate you want, and they kind of do a head count, the way I understand it. But I think there's like it's not like just a one-time count. I think there's some bargaining back and forth and trying to convince you to sway it. And I think they do 2 or 3 different times. Then they get a final count and say, okay, this person won this polling place, this person won this polling place. And they kind of figure it out from there. The math for how they win the caucus, I'm not sure on.
Well, I'm not sure if you're the one that brought this up. I think you were, um, because you'd be the only one that was tied to Iowa. But somebody made an interesting comment about how many times the winner in Iowa actually won the presidential election. Not very often.
Yeah, I sent you that in an email. I was doing some looking on it, and I think it's 3 times since 1980 or 1976 or something like that, has the winner of the Iowa caucus actually gone on to win the presidency.
Wow. Wow. And why is it so important then? I don't understand that. Why is it such a big deal?
We've uh, pushed ourselves as first to the nation, and people like to springboard it as I've got some momentum going into the rest of it. And for the life of me, I don't know why it is such a big deal. Because we're wrong so many times. Was it? I'm trying to remember. It was either when Mitt Romney or McCain ran. Who was it that won here in Iowa? Rand Paul, I think,
Yeah.
won Iowa that year, and that guy was a goofball. Um, but for the life of me, I don't know how he pulled off Iowa. Um, I know Joe Biden didn't win Iowa last year for the Democrats.
Do they even
Um,
do Democrats in the Iowa caucus?
yes, We
They
each have our
do.
own. Yep.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I
Yep.
thought it was strictly Republican. Um,
No, the Democrats are not holding one this year, just like they're not holding primaries.
right. Well, that's
Um,
true. Yeah.
and the Democrats have officially moved the Iowa caucus later in the primary season and have acknowledged that there were so many issues with the Iowa caucus last year. I guess there were some irregularities with how the caucuses were tabulated and real-time app data and just a bunch of issues. It got pushed back and said we're not going to have Iowa be first in the nation anymore.
The way you describe what's going on and the infrequency that they actually predict, it's almost it's almost like the Iowa caucuses are kind of like a preseason NFL game. Kind of fun to watch, but really not any impact.
Kind of. That's maybe a good way to look at it. One thing I like about having the Iowa caucus be first in the nation from a even for the from the I consider myself an independent, but I haven't seen anything go to the Republican Party for years. But as an independent, I liked them being first in the nation because it got the candidates to Iowa. They've been
Yeah.
campaigning in Iowa for 6 months.
Right.
They've been
Right.
really hitting Iowa hard because they've got the first in the nation status. Whereas I think if we get put back, after Super Tuesday or mixed into Super Tuesday or whatever, we're going to lose some of that, momentum and we're going to get lost in the shuffle. Being from a smaller state, we don't have a lot to offer in the electoral college. And even for delegates going into, the national conventions. So it's hard or easier for us to get forgotten. But it's really nice when we had the first in the nation status to see the candidates, have them come out, even though I don't want to listen to a word any of the Republicans have to say.
Right.
It was just nice seeing them make such an effort for such a small state.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Now, Donald Trump gave a speech recently in Iowa, right? Isn't that
He's
where he
given several.
well, most recently, isn't that where he uh, quoted Adolf Hitler or some other dictators with the
I
immigrants
believe so.
poisoning the blood?
It was either Iowa or it was New Hampshire, but it was one of the two.
Right. You wonder why people don't hear that and become appalled by it. Of course, Democrats do, and anybody with a reasonable mind, but that doesn't seem to impact or worry Republicans at all. They buy into it. You wonder, are they buying into the whole dictatorial shit, or are they just not listening?
Uh, I would say for some Republicans, it's they're not listening, and for others, it's they're buying into it.
Wow.
There is a definite section of the Republican Party, even here in Iowa, that buys into the racist overtones of somebody like Donald Trump.
What I don't understand about Donald Trump in Iowa is this. As I remember when he was doing all the tariffs and stuff, this was devastating to farmers. There were a lot of farmers having a lot of financial problems because of some of the things Donald Trump was doing. Why would these people be willing to work against their own self interest? It amazes me that they're willing to do that.
Because a lot of them came back. They got bailed out by the government, so they didn't actually get as financially hurt as they could have been. Um, and they went, well, I still made money on the year, or they cashed in their crop insurance, which if they didn't get the dollars they were looking for on the crop insurance or the yield, they can still get paid. And they came out fine, even though in the moment it hurt them because they got the bailout at the end. They look at it as a win.
So it doesn't matter how they got the money. It's just that they got the money.
For at least some of the big pharma Republicans, yeah, it doesn't matter
Wow.
exactly how they got the money. They came out ahead, so it was fine.
Wow. That's that's pretty
And
short-sighted.
they buy into the rest of some of them buy into the rest of his rhetoric and go, okay, well, we got hurt a little bit early with the tariffs, but you know they came good and they made sure we were taken care of. But I like his other stuff, so it's okay.
I always love that they say, "Well, he's done a lot of good stuff." Like what? I keep asking people, "What has he done that's good?" And there's nothing I can come up with.
Well, they listen to a lot of what he himself has said. I see a lot of the same talking points. First president in 40 years to have no wars. While we were in the middle of two of them.
Right.
Um, oh, we were energy independent. We weren't. Well, built the wall, securest border ever. As that same wall is now failing and we're having a border crisis. If it was so secure, why are we having a border crisis the minute he was out of office?
Right.
None of it makes a lick of sense. But they hear the talking points they want to hear, and they hear him saying it, and they want to believe it so bad that they do.
They'll accept virtually anything because he's talking their language. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. I've been to Iowa many times. I love Iowa. I go to Okoboji and Des Moines and Dubuque, some great places in Iowa. Because they support Donald Trump, do you sense uh, some of the same attitudes that Donald Trump prescribes to, like racism, anti-Semitism, the misogyny, uh, the whole idea that let's upend our government? Do you get that sense of people you meet in Iowa?
Maybe not the complete upending of the government, not from the people I talk to, but some of the racism, the homophobia, definitely. The supporting of the abortion bans 100%. I hear that from people. Um, just some of what he says, definitely. Uh, not as much the anti-Semitism, at least not in the areas I'm around. But yeah, when it comes to most of it, yes, I hear some of it.
Right. It's really sad to hear that. I mean, as somebody of my age, I lived during a time when I heard all of that, the anti-Semitism and the racism and the homophobia. And back then it was accepted. It was, yeah, of course, we hate LGBTQ people. Of course, we question black people. I mean, that was part of the culture back then, just by virtue of the time. I hate to say that, but it was. I mean, it took people to grow up like myself and go, "Well, that's fucked up. That makes no sense." But that's how life was. It surprises me that all these years later, there are still people trapped in that mindset, and they have not evolved at fucking all.
Yeah, it does kind of surprise me too. Um, it's just it's from people up and down the age, you know, generation to generation. Um, it's not just the older generations, although I do hear it a lot more from those. Um, but I hear it from younger people too.
Well, and I think a lot of it is fear based. That's what Republicans run on is fear. And I think there are some people that are worried that people of color or LGBTQ or somebody is going to overtake them. They won't have the power they have as, white people, which is ridiculous. But I think there is a lot of fear um, in the people in this country, and that's the way why they vote the way they vote. They're willing to vote for a fascist because they feel, well, I'm got the same mindset as a fascist, so it won't affect me. It'll just get those libtards out of the way. They don't understand it's going to affect everybody if we're under a fascist rule, because we know that Donald Trump, I said this in a TikTok. I said Republicans have to understand if you're supporting a fascist, the only thing Donald Trump does is when he has something to gain from it or something to lose from it, he'll avoid it. If he gets elected president again, if he goes the legal route, he can no longer be elected president again. And he's got nothing to gain from the Republican Party. They better be ready to kowtow to everything he says, or they're going to go after his ass too. Or if he's going to be a full fascist, he's not going to listen to anybody. We've seen that he's willing to go after Republicans and Democrats, and that's what the Republicans are missing here. They're not safe either if they put him back in office.
No, they're not. He will go after anybody, but they do. They think that as long as he's going after people who I disagree with, I'll be safe
Right.
until I end up in that group that he's now disagreeing with.
Right.
And that's the same thing that happened in 1930s Germany or 1940s Germany. Um, I can't remember the name of the poem or the author, but basically it said they came for this group, and I said nothing because it wasn't me. Came for this group, it wasn't. I didn't say anything because it wasn't me. They came for this group, and I didn't say anything. And the final thing is, they finally came for me, and there was no one to say anything because they're all gone.
Right. Right. And that's
And
exactly true. It's like the frog boiling in the pan of water. It creeps up on you. If you're not paying attention, you're fucked. It's too
yeah,
late.
exactly. And um, no, they agree with some of what he wants, and he's saying what they want to hear, so they think they're going to be safe. But he will screw over anybody if it means saving his own ass.
Well, and the ignorance of the Republican Party is this: they keep spouting about freedom and rights. They don't understand that when there's a fascist government, nobody has freedom and nobody has rights, including the people that support. Because at that point, he's not looking for support, willing support. He's going to force you to support him. So your freedom and your rights are gone. And they're pretty short-sighted to not understand that it's going to affect them as well as Democrats or the LGBTQ or people of color. It's going to be everybody and anybody that is contradictory to what Donald Trump or any other fascist would say. It's this has been the problem with the Republicans. They can't see beyond the end of their nose, and they keep fucking up because they can't, and they just never learn. They never fucking learn.
No, they don't. And like we've said, they use fear. I remember when Obama was either I think he was president and running for re-election. They kept saying, "Oh, he's got signs already done up saying he's going to invoke martial law in this state and all of this, and they're coming for your guns, and oh, the end is near, and all this stuff." Of course, none of it ever happened.
No, of course not.
And but then they elect Donald Trump, and what does he say? Take the guns first, give them due process later.
Right, right, all right,
The only
exactly.
person in 30 years who said anything about actually confiscating legally purchased firearms has been a Republican president.
But they don't listen to that. They don't hear that. They only hear what they want to hear. Since we're talking about um, elections and we're talking about Donald Trump, we of course had this big news story. I think Old Soul and I talked about it a bit too, and she had some interesting insights to it. But the fact that the Colorado Supreme Court has um, decided to disqualify Donald Trump from the ballot in Colorado for the 2024 presidential election because they found that he was part and parcel to this insurrection. And according to the third section of the 14th Amendment, somebody is involved in an insurrection or gives help to the enemy, they cannot hold office. Now, the reason this whole thing was put out there is because of the Civil War, and they didn't want Confederate generals running for president or other elected offices. But when you heard that the Supreme Court in Colorado decided to disqualify him, did that surprise you? It kind of surprised me too. I didn't think they would do it.
I will say my jaw literally dropped.
Yeah.
Um, I stared at my phone for a couple minutes, just trying to what? Couldn't believe it. I thought it was amazing. I talked to a couple friends right away. Most of them seemed rather shocked and happy about the outcome. But no, I was very surprised it happened. I I no doubt believe it's going to end up before the Supreme Court, but I also have my doubts that it might not.
Right, right. Well, that's something Old Soul said yesterday, and it was I love when she tells me shit because it's so clear, and I need things to be clear. She said there was one of three options that she thought would happen. And I think she's right about this. First of all, they would uphold the Supreme Court in Colorado, and that would essentially shut him out of a lot, if not all, of the other states in terms of being on the ballot. It would end Donald Trump as a candidate, and that's conceivable. Or they would say, yeah, we're not going to touch this and send it back to the states. Now, every state would have a little more freedom in coming up with disqualifying him because they can't go back to the Supreme Court to get a second opinion. And there would be a lot of people, a lot of states disqualifying Donald Trump. And all we need is to have a few swing states to do it, and then he's mathematically not possible. Or they could disagree with Colorado Supreme Court and let him stay on the ballot. Um, Old Soul seemed to think that they would do that. They would somehow figure a way to not take him off the ballot. And I wasn't so sure about that, because the Republicans and the Supreme Court, for that matter, Donald Trump has a different position with them. He's kind of an anchor around their neck. He's dragging them down. He's costing them elections. He's running people through the ringer. If there was ever a time to free yourself from the clutches of Donald Trump, it would be for the Supreme Court to say, yep, we uphold or we won't hear it, and let Donald Trump die in the vine. That would be the smart thing to do for the Republicans. Now, we haven't seen Republicans do anything smart, but what are your thoughts? How do you think this is all going to shake out?
Well, I think it's going to shake out one of a number of ways. I think if it gets to the Supreme Court, I can honestly see it probably ending up 6-3, 7-2, that he is disqualified.
Really?
Yeah, I think, well, obviously all three of the liberal justices are going to side against Donald Trump. That's a given.
Right.
So I know it's going to be 6-3 either way, probably for sure. But the reason I'm thinking John Roberts could possibly disqualify him because he's trying to bring some legitimacy back to the Supreme Court. And he knows if they find a way to weasel him out and let him stay on the ballot, it's going to keep the spotlight on the court, and it's going to be very unpopular, and the calls for reform, et cetera, are going to be so loud. It's going to be ridiculous. But I can also see Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, and Neil Gorsuch turning on Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well,
because they're trying
didn't
to get away from.
Didn't Gorsuch have a decision that's similar to this?
Yeah, like 20, 25 years ago. I don't know if it was a decision or if it was a legal paper he wrote, but he basically said, it wasn't on this, it was on the immunity deal.
Okay.
Is what they were talking about.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right about that.
But
this is a
either way, his paper basically goes completely against, as long, and people are bound to change their mind. They can learn things and they can change their opinion. But that opinion looks like he would side against Donald Trump. But I think his three justices, are trying to get away from being seen as his bought and paid for justices like Eileen Cannon. And I think I could see them saying, well, if we smack him down now and knock him off the ballot, we can give ourselves a little bit of legitimacy and take some of the spotlight off ourselves.
And get some goodwill,
Yeah.
It's real easy. It's a way of redemption, so to speak, with the vast majority of the public.
Kind of, or at least enough that it, maybe not entirely redemption, but it might give them a little breathing room.
So if they were to consider just agreeing with the Colorado Supreme Court, that just shows the ignorance of Donald Trump and his legal team, because his natural tendency would be to, I'm going to appeal it to the Supreme Court. They're my buddies. I'm going to appeal it to them. But that's a hell of a big risk. If he didn't appeal it, he would just have Colorado not voting for him, and he wasn't going to win Colorado anyway. Now, some other states might wade in and go against him too, but it would be a much longer process. Now, by going to the Supreme Court, if he guesses wrong and they hold up the Supreme Court in Colorado, he's done tomorrow when 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 that happens. That's a fuck up. That's a big risk to take. That tells you how desperate he is.
That's the way I understand it from the channels I've seen talking about it. It sounds like if it goes before the Supreme Court and they decide um against him, that he would be off the ballot nationwide. It would be done and over. I did see one, and I don't remember which creator on TikTok I saw that was talking about it. Said there was some way they could weasel out of it, in such a way that even with them issuing a decision, that they could narrowly agree with it in such a way that it was only applying to Colorado.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
but
sure.
I don't know exactly how that would work. And I think that would be, even if they agreed with Colorado and said, yeah, okay, you're right. Because of, because I think there's a provision in Colorado state law that allowed him to be challenged or something. I'm not sure. Um, that said, basically, okay, we agree that he's off the ballot in Colorado. I don't see how you could have any presidential candidate in one state being off the ballot and saying, "Oh, you're ineligible,"
Well, and
but
that's
allowed the rest.
and that's the thing though. It doesn't officially go where if they side with Colorado that he's off all the other ballots. It's just the premise that every other state that's going to do this has no reason to go to the Supreme Court. It's only the U.S. Supreme Court, because they've already decided this. And if they don't make it clear and they say, yeah, we don't totally agree with it, but in Colorado it's okay, they're just opening themselves up for having state after state after state pounded on their fucking door, and it's going to be complete chaos. And I got to think by now, with all the shit that he sent up to the Supreme Court, I think the Supreme Court's getting tired of the bullshit because Donald Trump himself is keeping them busier than the normal shit they have to deal with.
I think you're probably right, and a lot of his bullshit is stupid and frivolous, and you know he's grasping at straws because he knows nothing else. Um, all of his normal delay tactics, and I'm smarter than you, so you need to listen to me. And it works this way because I say it does.
Right.
Isn't working. It's worked for him his entire life until now.
Yeah, he's in a bigger pond, and he's not the biggest fish in the pond, and that's his problem. People would run out of money or run out of patience or run out of nerve, and the U.S. government doesn't run out of any of that shit. They'll run you into the fucking ground no matter who you are if that's what they want to do. You brought up the immunity thing too, and I'm not as worried about the immunity thing that he's taken to the Supreme Court from Jack Smith's election interference thing, because what he's asking is so ridiculous and so frivolous. I just don't see any way the Supreme Court sides with him. And if they don't side with him in that case, he's fucked there too, because there's nowhere to delay Jack Smith and Judge Chutkin after that. This is the end game if they don't give him immunity. And I don't see how they could ever possibly justify that. It's a frivolous fucking claim. It's ridiculous.
Well, he tipped his hand in that today a little bit
Did he?
with the Supreme Court. I saw something where he went to the Supreme Court in a filing today about Jack Smith's thing, and they say he's like, no, 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 wait a minute. If we go straight to the Supreme Court to decide this, that's going too fast, and haste makes waste. And we got to slow this down and let it play out through the normal process and go to the appeals court, and then let them bring you a decision. Then we'll appeal that decision to you. Don't, no, 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 don't fast track this. No, 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 don't want that.
Well, he doesn't have the option to decide that. They've already decided that they're going to look at it and come with a response. So Donald Trump is tilting it at windmills here. He's not going to
Pretty
be able to
much.
do anything with it. But it shows what his intention here is. It's not justice. It's not the law. It's all about delay. Everything Donald Trump does is delay. And the problem is he's just delaying the inevitable. He's not getting out of anything. He's just trying to delay everything he can, knowing that he's going to get nailed in the end. That's a weird thing.
Oh, it's very weird. But it shows to anybody of a rational mind that clearly if it was me and I was up on 91 felony counts and I had a way of saying there's not that, I'm not supposed to be charged for any of this, and here's why. Take a look at this. And I have somebody wanting to rush it to the Supreme Court and look at it, and I knew I was right. I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. Let's go tomorrow. When can we get this done? Let's get me out of this hot water. And
Because
he's like,
he's
wait a minute. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's back this off. It means he knows he's not right. He knows that this is bullshit. He's just trying to delay, distract, and divert.
he's like the little kid that's just trying to avoid punishment at all cost and or doesn't want to go to bed. I have my 3-year-old granddaughter. She hates going to bed, and she comes up with every possible thing you can do, and that's exactly what he's doing. I mean, he is is losing at every turn. He knows he's losing at every turn. He just wants to delay it, but it's not going to change anything. The fact that he thinks that if I just delay it and I can get elected president and then I can cancel all this stuff, that is the most ridiculous Hail Mary I've ever heard, because I don't see how he even comes close to getting elected. I hope he is the nominee. I don't think he will be, but I hope he is, because that's a sure way the Democrats will wipe that motherfucker out.
Oh, I agree. I mean, it is one hell of a Hail Mary, but I think he also believes his own bullshit.
Yeah, I do too.
I think he believes that, you know, he legitimately won the popular vote both times. In his mind, even if it was by one vote, he has convinced himself that he won the popular vote in both elections, and all those other votes for against him were all rigged somehow
Yeah.
because he can't take the thought of being a loser in anything.
Right, right, exactly. Uh, that is probably the most troublesome thing that he can deal with, is when he's exposed for the fraud he is. And that's why I say when I don't think he's going to be the nominee, I'm thinking about all the things that are going on. People are worried about Florida, and people are worried about Washington, D.C. being delayed till after the election. I don't know that that really matters. First of all, the first thing that may come down the pipe that people are forgetting about is the Manhattan District with Alvin Bragg. That may be the first trial that goes to court, and he can be destroyed with a conviction in that fucking trial before he even gets to DC or Florida or whatever, or Georgia. So he's really got no way out here. And it's funny that the Republicans don't see that and back away from him as yet. But the longer they stick with Donald Trump, the better off the Democrats are, because when he finally drops out or gets kicked out, they're going to have to hustle around to get any kind of fucking candidate that will get any kind of attention that anybody trusts. And they don't really have anybody right now, not even Ron DeSantis. He's fucking done.
No, they don't have anybody. I know a lot of the donors, including the remaining Koch brother, are jumping in behind Nikki Haley,
Yeah.
but I don't think she's got a chance.
No.
I still say, I've said it for months, I think their best bet would be going with Chris Christie,
Yeah, I do
but
too. They'd still lose, but
oh, they'd still lose. Now that Vivek Ramaswamy is saying, well, if they're going to kick Trump off the ballot for the primary in Colorado, we should all stay home and not go. Or, okay, you and Haley and whoever else go, let Chris Christie scoop those delegates. Stay out of Iowa too. Take
when Vi-
DeSantis with you.
when Vivek Ramaswamy said that, he said, for those that don't know, he said, well, if Colorado's going to take Donald Trump off the ballot, take me off too. And I'm thinking to myself, cool, man, who fucking cares? But he's exposed who he really is. He's really not running for president. He's there to be Donald Trump's toady in hopes that Donald Trump will put him in his administration or make him a VP. This clown doesn't want to be president. He has no hopes of being president, and he's smart enough to know that. But it for him to say that made no sense. What do you think? Oh, Ramaswamy's not doesn't want to be on the ballot either. We better change our Supreme Court fucking decision. Does he think he has that much power that that anybody cares what he thinks. It's almost laughable. It's embarrassing for him.
I think that was all made for a audience of one.
Yeah, I do too.
He said that for Donald himself, just to like you said, he's going for a cabinet position or he wants to be a VP nominee or whatever. Um, I think Vivek or Haley's only option would be if this doesn't get resolved till after the RNC convention, um, that they would be the VP candidate on the Trump ticket is, and then if Donald Trump gets thrown off the ballot, they just slide into the role of being
Yeah.
the nominee. That's like I think that's those two's only hope of being the mainstream uh presidential nominee for the candidate. But I also heard somebody said one of the names being floated around as a possible VP candidate on a Trump ticket was Tucker Carlson.
Oh, great. That'll work. That'll help. That'll help. Well, no, I think I've said that before. That I say that Donald Trump won't be the nominee, and people say that's crazy. He's so far ahead. And I say, well, think about this. Think of all the money being put behind Nikki Haley. There's a lot of billionaires that think Donald Trump isn't going to be the candidate too, because Nikki Haley's not even close to Donald Trump. The only hope she would have is if Donald Trump dropped out or was kicked out, and she could move past uh, Ron DeSantis. These billionaires don't make choices like this without having some insight or some idea of what's going to happen. That's why I think that Donald Trump won't be the nominee. Too many other people agree with me.
Yeah, I think you're right. They're not going to throw all their hard-earned money against Nikki Haley. I say hard-earned,
Yeah, that's in
which I
quotations.
really shouldn't say it that way. But they won't throw their money against some or behind Nikki Haley to go against Trump if they didn't have some sort of an inside track to think there was a way she could maybe pick up the nomination, whether it was they've bought off the RNC and there's going to be some shenanigans and it, or who knows. But I mean, the RNC could solve itself a whole lot of problems by just saying, well, Donald, you lost this case in Colorado. You're not eligible to be our. We're not going to have you be our candidate anymore.
Right.
You're not. We're just not going to make you be a party candidate and drop him. And then even if he wins at the Supreme Court and he gets put back on the ballot, he's still off the ballot
Right.
as far
Exactly.
as the Republicans go.
And then if he's,
Um,
but he's certainly the kind of guy that would say, uh, well, I still think I can win, so I'm going to run as a third party candidate. Good. Please do that. He's not going to affect the Democrats, and he's going to destroy the Republicans even more. And frankly, I think he's all about destroying the Republican Party if they don't get up behind him in everything he says and does. So, um, well, you heard what you hear what the lieutenant governor in Texas said?
oh yeah, they're going to just write Biden off the ballot.
Yeah, apparently you can just do that. You can just go against people's will and take them off the ballot. Good luck with that, dumb fuck. I mean, you're the lieutenant governor of the state of Texas, and you don't even know that that's not possible. I mean, you'd have to have something crime that he committed, and there's nothing. So it's again, it's for an audience of one. And when are these people going to stop bowing to Donald Trump? I mean, I still think there's a certain amount of fear that they don't know what he might do or say if they go against him. But at some point, they got to break because he's doing nothing for them but causing them to lose over and over again. It's amazing to me that they're still sticking so closely behind him in spite of all his failures.
Oh, definitely. I don't quite understand why they're doing it that way. But then you have like the whole thing in Texas, they're just going to kick Biden off the ballot. Go ahead and try.
Yeah,
Biden will win that. There's no way because even if he's got to push that all the way through the courts and go all the way to the Supreme Court himself on this case, he's going to win that one,
right.
hands down. Um, because he's done nothing, like you said, whereas Trump has. The other thing I'm hearing is there's a lot of talk. Um, a few of the commenters I like to follow, Hawk, Legal Dad, Tom Powell Jr., and a few others, don't do what you do. You block all the Trump fucks.
Yeah,
They engage with them
I
and
know.
listen and read their comments, which some of the responses are hilarious. But they're still saying, "Oh, we'll just write him in, or we'll do this, or we'll do that." Good, good.
You can't, because the law says this. The law doesn't say he's off the ballot. It says he can't hold office. So even if you did write him in and he did win, he still couldn't hold office.
Right, but I say let them write him in on every ballot they want to. It like the Supreme Court decision in Colorado said the Secretary of State cannot count any ballot with his name written in as the vote. So write it in. Write it on every ballot you want to cast for him. All you're doing is making those ballots ineligible for the presidential race, and you're throwing them away and giving Joe Biden a bigger win. Let
Exactly.
them write him in. I want to see it. Hell, let's write him in, 81 million times or 90 million times all across the nation. I'm all for it.
Did you hear the judges that dissented on this case in Colorado? One of them said you can't keep Donald Trump off the ballot without due process. Now let me tell you how I look at this. With Roe v. Wade, the Republicans will say, well, it doesn't specifically say anything about abortion in the Constitution, so it's not a thing, so we can overturn Roe v. Wade, right? Now, if you look at the 14th Amendment, the third section of the 14th Amendment, it says that if somebody is involved in insurrection, they cannot hold office. Nowhere in that amendment or that section of the amendment does it say you're required to have any due process. So you're telling me it's not in the Constitution with abortion, but even though it's not in the Constitution regarding this, you think we should uphold that? No, I'm sorry. It doesn't say anything about due process. And if you're going to be an originalist, let's fucking deal with it the way it's dealt with and the way you dealt with abortions. If it's proven that you committed or were involved in insurrection, and the Colorado courts proved that twice in the first court case and in the appeals court, um, then the ruling's very apparent. You can't hold office. So that's why I'm wondering if this is going to be really hard for the U.S. Supreme Court to turn down, because it's so clear and there's really no argument for not taking him off the ballot.
Well, Legal Dad was pointing out about the due process thing. It's like about due process. There was a court case. Donald
Yeah,
Trump could have attended. He
true.
did not attend.
That's
They
true
really
too.
put up they really put up not they didn't put up much of a defense, and he lost. There was his due process.
Yeah, good point. Good point. That's they don't have a fucking prayer. If we have any shred of decency in the U.S. Supreme Court, they will uh, uphold the Colorado Supreme Court, and we'll be done with this. Can you imagine what it would be like if Donald Trump was going to be taken off all or most ballots where it was mathematically impossible for him to ever win the presidency? You watch the Republicans bail from that motherfucker quickly.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They'd be done with him in a heartbeat. One other thing I was thinking about with this is if you read the ruling, they they knew he was talking about appealing, and I know it's only day two, I guess day three by the time this is gonna be on. Since this ruling has been out, they stayed it until January 4th, knowing that he could appeal. And as of I have not heard that he has appealed this case to the Supreme Court yet,
And he may
but I
not.
heard some, and he might not. And if he doesn't, then he's just off the ballot in Colorado and only Colorado.
Right.
But the Secretary of State for Colorado came out and said, look, January 5th is my cutoff day. I have to have the names that are eligible for the primary so I can get the ballots made
Right.
in time for the primary. So even if the Supreme Court takes this, um, I guess what there was some stuff language in there. If the Supreme Court does take an appeal, then it is stayed pending their appeal, and he would be on the ballot for the primary, potentially, at least on the ballot. But then if the Supreme Court came back later and said, no, you're not eligible, any ballot where he was selected would just be disregarded.
Right.
But um, he might not appeal this, and he's only got until the 5th, basically, to work before they start printing ballots. That's not a lot of time. You got 2 holidays in there,
Right.
and he's got so much else going on, and he's not hiring the best attorneys. I mean, they forgot to get him a jury for the Manhattan fraud case.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, I don't think, I mean, there's a chance they don't appeal this in time to keep him on the ballot for the primary in Colorado.
well, and it's not even a matter of time. Like I was saying before, him appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court is a huge risk. Because, like I say, if they go for the Supreme, if they uphold the Supreme Court in Colorado, it's fucking done. It's over. There's no delaying. There's nothing. It's over. He's not going to be president. I mean, he's not going to be anyway. But in his mind, everything's been taken off the table. He's fucked either way he goes. But I think the smart move for him, at least to delay it a little bit longer, is to not appeal it, just say, fuck Colorado, I wasn't going to win anyway, and just see what the other states do. Him taking it to the U.S. Supreme Court may be the best thing to ever happen to Democrats.
Oh, probably. And I could see him in his, and I use this word sarcastically, infinite wisdom,
Yeah,
uh, taking it to the Supreme Court because he probably believes he could win.
he does. But
Um, because he's got the best words and he's the smartest person in any room he's in, and she'll show them who's boss and all that stuff. I know how he thinks. But I did see something. There was a hearing today, I think, in front of the Secretary of State or something in Maine
yeah,
about Donald Trump's eligibility to be on the ballot in Maine
right.
for the primary.
Right. And we're dealing with it here in Minnesota. We may be looking at it here. Michigan. Now, Michigan is the one that is the kicker because that's a swing state. If he loses Michigan, he may be done just by losing Michigan.
Oh, oh, definitely. With the Electoral College, there's only like 5 states that this election's probably going to come down to. It's what Ohio, no, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, and where was the other one? Arizona or Nevada, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Arizona, maybe Nevada. Um,
I think those are all the toss-up ones that could go either way, because historically they go either way. Um,
right.
the rest are pretty solid in which way they lean.
Well, the best meme I've seen, I don't know if you saw this by Lincoln Project. It has a picture of Joe Biden and um, it says something like Joe Biden has a picture of Joe Biden and it looks like something you would see on the MSNBC. It says Joe Biden projected winner of Colorado. I love that shit because if Donald Trump is off, there's no question. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what he does. And I think we have to consider that he may not appeal that because that may be the worst thing he can do.
Somebody on TikTok pointed out, going all the way back to 2004. 2004 was the last time Colorado was red
Right. Yeah.
in a presidential election. They have been a blue state for the presidential election ever since.
Right. So
And
losing
that
those
was,
electoral votes isn't going to hurt Donald Trump, but the
no,
precedents
mathematically,
will.
they had already had Colorado as a lock going to Biden anyway.
Right. Right. But the precedence it sets is a whole different story, not only for Colorado, but for every other state that's thinking about doing it. If they get away with it, then all the other states are going to give it a shot.
Any state that any swing state, um, or anything is going to try. I don't see how the Supreme Court can't take this case. They're probably going to side with Colorado and say, no, you're off the ballot and you're done because they want to be done with Donald Trump. Um, we know Clarence Thomas isn't going to recuse himself.
No,
He should, but
he
he won't.
should. Yeah, he definitely should. I tell you what, Eric, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. We got plenty of other stuff to talk about. So hold on. We'll be right back. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. I have Eric with me on the show today. He's our friend or correspondent, if you will, from Iowa. We've been talking about what's going on in Colorado and the uh, uh, disqualification of Donald Trump on the ballot in 2024 in Colorado. That's an interesting story. It's going to be fun to follow. Now, Eric, when we talked before the show, you brought up the show I did with Old Soul yesterday, and we were talking about the abortion issues and adoption and how all that kind of ties in. And you wanted to talk about it because you have some special insights to that whole thing. And I don't know where you're going to go with it, but feel free to do so now.
Okay, well, Old Soul mentioned that one of the things they're pushing with the abortion bans is that, well, you can just give your child up for adoption, which is a great thing. And any woman who wants to do that, you know, I agree with if that's their choice. Problem is, and I myself was adopted, and I
Okay.
ended up in a great family, um, no problems, and everything was fine. But I hear horror stories a lot about how they go wrong. Not told the whole story, never told they were adopted. Um, you know, ended up in an abusive situation. You find out the mother was tricked.
Right.
In some cases, the mother was a minor, and her father um, was the one who made the decision. You know, especially in the '60s, '70s, and '80s,
Right.
where it was, well, you're still my daughter. I'm in charge. You're going to do what I say. And this is, and no unmarried daughter of mine is going to have a baby, and we're never talking about it again or whatever. You know, you hear about all of that. But yes, the some of these people who pushed for the abortion bans firmly believe that every baby um, that could be born that isn't because of an abortion is one that could be adopted out.
Right.
And they don't want to hear and they don't believe that there is anything about quality of life for the baby. That is that
Well,
in a lot of cases.
it's beside the point for them. They don't care about the kids after they're born. They've proven that with not offering any help to children after they're born. It's prior to, and it's really not about the children. It's about the actual act of abortion. They're dead set against it. They're going to argue it till the day they die, and that's all they care about. It's not the children. It's not the women. It's not anybody but this act. They're dead set against it because the evangelicals told them to be, and they see that. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I bet you the Republicans don't give fuck all about abortion, kids, mothers. They don't care anything about that. All they know is if they side with the evangelicals, that they're going to get some more votes and potentially some more money and support. And that's really all they care about.
A lot of the politicians, yes, it's just a talking point. Also, what Old Soul was saying about them. What did she say? She was saying like they don't want the abortion bans because not just like the adoption issue, and there was something else she said. Um, and I lost it. I just had it and it's gone. But with the adoption issue, yeah, they believe anything is like adoption, even into a bad home, is still better than an abortion in their mind. Oh, I remember what it was. She was talking about the quality of life and saving every life and not believing in any of the fertility treatments and all of that. I know in my case, My adoptive parents, my parents, have talked to me a couple different times about it, and were having issues, which is why they needed to adopt. And they were told specifically, not that there was a lot of options available in the 80s, but they couldn't undergo any of the treatment options
Right.
because the Catholic Church said no. If you can't do it on your own, it doesn't matter. You're screwed. Adoption's your only option. But at the time, conveniently, the Catholic Church was also running. They're still running the Catholic Charities charity, but they're not involved in adoptions anymore. I don't believe. But at the time, they were placing children, to be adopted.
Right. Right.
And in the 80s, a newborn was $10,000.
Wow. In the 80s. I mean, that's not that
In
far
the
back.
80s,
What's
you know,
weird. What's weird about this is when you talk about Republicans and not being against fertility and being against doing anything until, even up until the time the woman is on death's door to do anything. It's reminiscent of a religion you don't hear too much about anymore, and I think people mix up this religion. But there was a religion that was kind of prominent for a time called Christian Scientists. I don't know
mm-hmm.
if they don't believe in any kind of medical care or anything. You just pray away everything. Whether you've got tonsillitis or a broken leg, you pray and God will heal you. And that never worked out too well because there were a lot of kids that got deathly ill and died because the parents wouldn't do anything for them. And in a way, when you talk about Republicans and evangelicals regarding abortion, they don't want to do anything medically for these women or for these children until there's no other hope. And even then, they don't. It's ironic that uh, a group of people, whether they be religious or political, in this day and age, are so afraid of any kind of medical intervention when it's desperately needed.
Oh yeah. I was just thinking a couple of quotes popped into my head as you were talking there, though, about these Republicans and these pro-lifers. I'm reminded of what George Carlin said.
This will
They
be
want
good.
li- they want live babies to grow up to be dead soldiers.
Well, there's something to be true, some truth to that.
And then he also said, if you're pre-K or if you're pre-born, you're fine. If you're pre-K, you're fucked.
Yeah,
And he
that's
said that 20 years ago. It's still
yeah.
true.
It is absolutely true, and it even goes to like Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House. Uh, and I think Old Soul brought this up, and I don't know the specifics, but it was it was basically we're against abortion because we need more babies to be born to be workers.
He
To
said something about that. Yeah.
That's absolutely fucking absurd. How can anybody in the right mind say something like that and believe it's going to come off well?
Well, basically, in her opinion, because she wrote her own consenting opinion against Roe v. Wade, and when they overturned it, Amy Coney Barrett basically said there's not a big enough supply of babies for adoption in this country.
Right, right, yeah,
And
exactly.
she basically called women broodmares and said, "You got to pump out these babies so people who can't have them can adopt."
But the interesting thing about it with Amy Coney Barrett is that the story that came out about all the machinations behind overturning Roe v. Wade, she was the one person in the Supreme Court that said, yeah, it's not time right now. You got to hold off on this. This isn't going to work out well. Turns out she was right. But it's ironic that this woman, this handmaiden's tale woman, is the one that uh, thought better of it before they did it. Of course, she was new and she was one person, so they fucking did it anyway. And they fucked up big time when they did it. I don't think they realized it. They were proud of themselves, but once again, they look back and go, "Oh, we fucked up big," because that's going to be the big issue in 2024 over and above all the other bullshit going on.
It's going to continue to be the big issue until Democrats can do something about it. Um, and I think while legislation is going to be a first step, I firmly believe the final step is going to have to be a constitutional amendment.
I agree. Well, they seem to think that if they can simply codify it, and had they codified it when they had the opportunity, meaning the Democrats, we probably wouldn't be in this position now. But if they codify it, that isn't an absolute, like you're suggesting. It may have to be an actual amendment that says everyone has full body autonomy. They can choose what happens to their body. Because right now, the Roe v. Wade thing isn't really an amendment about abortion. It's about right to privacy. So it's kind of a trail to get to the end result with the legalized abortion. But you may be right; they may need to get down to nut cutting time and just fucking do it. And that may be hard to do because with an amendment, you need like 3/4 or 2/3 of the
You need
Senate to vote for it.
an amendment requires, I think it's 2/3 of each chamber to pass, and then it goes to the states, and 3/4 of the states, so 38 states have to pass it to have it become an actual amendment and put it on the books. Um, and usually, not always, sometimes they put in a sunset clause
Right,
where, okay, the states have 10 years from the date Congress passes it to hold the votes and ratify it, then it becomes an amendment, or else it's done. Sometimes they don't. There's a couple amendments out there that are just a few states shy that could still get passed if enough
right.
states would ever take them up. One I found was interesting. It goes back. It was going to originally be the original 11th Amendment to the Constitution, from like 1791 or something. It could still be ratified and added. And it says like the U.S. House of Representatives will have one member for every 1,000 people of population, or no, every 100,000 people of population, or something
Right,
like that.
right,
And they could still pass it if enough states got on board.
right. Well, the famous amendment that didn't pass. It was kind of hot and heavy when I was young in the 70s, I think, maybe even the 80s. Are you familiar with that one? Do you know what that one was?
No.
The Equal Rights Amendment. They got it through the House, they got it through the Senate. They couldn't get 38 states to agree with it. Basically saying, yeah, women have equal rights, but they couldn't get fucking 38 states to vote for it. So, I mean, they're afforded equal rights in other ways, but it just goes to show how divided this country is when you can't pass an equal rights amendment. I mean, where do you find the negativity in that bullshit?
I think I think that one did have a sunset date on it,
Yeah, it
and
did.
they would have to go back and reauthorize and do some stuff and try to get it passed again. But I think if they were to put that one out today, I think they could probably get it repassed and added.
Probably, but then you'd have to get Congress to get off their ass and decide to do it. But
That's
like codifying Roe v. Wade, they're a little busy. They got other shit to worry about.
oh yeah, they got big thing they've got to do when they get back. They've got to get a budget passed or a CR or something,
Well,
or the government shuts down.
that's number two on the priority list. First, they got to get this inquiry into impeaching Joe Biden down pat. And then if they got time in the following week before the country shuts down, maybe they'll work on the budget thing.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I mean, it's been talked about at length. All they're hoping to do is find some evidence of some crime they can hold over Joe Biden's head. And even not, they might even try to pass an articles of impeachment with no crime outlined, um, just so he can go into the election saying, "Well, see, he was impeached too," and hope the voters fall for it.
Right. It's
Problem
all
is, they're not that stupid anymore.
no, I mean, the people in this country have been run through the ringer. And as much as we've had corruption in the past, in my lifetime in politics, there has been never a time when so much evidence has been known by so many people. I mean, usually when you're talking about politicians, dirty shit happens and it's under the radar, or you don't know enough about it to really understand. This shit's pretty blatant right in front of our faces. There's no denying what's going on, and you can't fool Americans anymore as long as we know as much as we know. They're still trying to play the game like they did in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where, oh, they don't know much. We know everything, motherfuckers, and it's going to cost you ultimately.
Well, yeah, just like I can't remember the name of the representative that somebody stopped and got a soundbite for him as he was walking away. What are you hoping to do with this impeachment inquiry, whatever it is? He's walking away. Trump. All I gotta say is Trump 2024, baby. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't remember who it was, but in years past, prior to TikTok and podcasts and all of that, um, that might have gotten picked up by two or three papers. It wouldn't have been a thing, and he could have gotten away with saying it. Now he's blasted all over the internet, and everybody with a rational mind has seen that clip.
Right. Right. And one of the things I've noticed, you mentioned that I block all Trumplifucks, and that's true. But in the last couple of weeks, I'm seeing this huge influx of Trumplifucks coming and saying shit to me uh, on my TikToks. And that just tells me I'm gratified by that because it seems to me that now they're getting scared. Now they're flailing. Now they're fucking panicking, and they'll attack anybody over anything. And everything they say is has nothing to do with anything. It's just ignorant. You're old. You're stupid. You're a libtard. All that stuff. It doesn't really hurt anybody's. It certainly doesn't hurt my feelings. But I think the politicians are at that stage too. They realize that they're in a no-win situation. If I don't follow Donald Trump, I'm fucked. But if I follow Donald Trump, I'm fucked. So I think we're going to see more and more people. I mean, Lindsey Graham came out and said, "Yeah, this impeachment thing, there is no smoking gun." And then it pissed off Marjorie Taylor Greene and some of the other MAGA people. How dare you? There's all kinds of evidence. Well, how come in the last 2 years, 2.5 years that you've been trying to impeach him, we haven't seen any evidence? When are you going to fucking bring the evidence?
Well, I think part of that, when it comes to like Marjorie Taylor Greene, I don't think she's smart enough to know what the word evidence actually means.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that. She's not a
You
bright
know,
woman.
um, somebody did a skit. I know they were probably exaggerating for effect, but they said they were having a conversation with a family member over, I think it was Thanksgiving, about, well, why, how can you still support Dr. Fauci? There's all this evidence of him, you know, saying it wasn't a real thing and this and that. And she's like, okay, what's your evidence? And the person pulls up a meme of a drawing of Dr. Fauci wearing a "it was all fake" shirt, and they're like, see, here's our evidence. And she's like, that's a cartoon, right? That's
Wow.
not evidence. And I think it was, dramatized for effect and probably exaggerated a little bit. But that's how they think. If they've seen anything on it, I think there's a section of this population that does not know what evidence actually means.
No, I agree. I mean, isn't it ironic that you can show a Republican a picture of Fauci and say a Nazi uniform and they'll go, oh, that's real. But then you can listen to Donald Trump literally quote Adolf Hitler and they go, oh, that's not what he meant. You ever notice how every time Donald Trump talks, somebody always says, well, what I think he meant to say is, why do we always have to translate everything Donald Trump says? Why can't we take him at his word? Why can't he say what he means? He is saying what he means. You're just trying to couch it because you're afraid that he's a fucking Nazi.
I mean, whenever they say what he really meant was, I think as part of it, they are trying to tell themselves he clearly had to mean something else,
Yeah.
because if he meant it the way he said, oh shit, I'm backing a bad person and I can't be doing that. I can't be wrong for my support of this person. You know, at this point in the game, what are we now? 8, 12 years, 10, 12 years into Trump being part of the political
Uh,
sphere,
Probably.
something like
Well,
that.
he kind of entered it in 2015 before the 16. I mean, he's been around and talking shit. So it could be 20 years that he's been talking shit. But as far as being in the midst of the political activity, it's been since 2015. So we're looking at 9 years.
9 years. Okay. So, but for the last 9-ish years, he's said a lot. He's told us who he is. He's shown us who he is with his actions and some of the stuff that's happened. Um, at this point, if you're still supporting him, you're just a dumb fuck.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the interesting thing. I think you and I both know people like this that under no circumstances, no matter what happens, will never admit they're wrong. And that's the only thing I can say about the Trumplafucks that continue to follow them. They can't not have seen the shit we've seen. They can't not heard the things we've heard, yet they still stand by him. And I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, and the benefit of the doubt would be that they're stupid. But I'm just feeling like it's just a mentality that no matter what, I'm just going to double down, triple down, and hope to God I wear these people out, because that's what Donald Trump does. You know,
Uh,
he's still talking about uh, the election fraud and all this sort of stuff. Uh, there's all kinds of proof that he's wrong, but he still keeps saying it. Never, never admit to anything.
exactly. Well, I think it was you and Ed that were talking about them listening to, still believing Fox News and this and that. And a lot of these people are getting their news source from Fox News or OAN or Newsmax or whatever. Were just reminded me of something that happened with my own dad. We were down, uh, we had to travel over to Iowa City. He had to have a medical procedure and it was going to take it was a 3 hour drive almost from my place and another hour for him. So we went down the night before and we
Right,
spent the night in the hotel room. And, that way we didn't have to, because we had to be there stupid early in the morning.
right,
Um, but as we were in the hotel room, he turned on the TV and he's flipping channels and he stops it on Fox News. And he leaves it there for a few minutes. And within minutes, I'm already starting to get a headache just listening to their bullshit. And he's like, what? He's like, what? Don't you want to watch the news? I'm like, that's not news. Well, yeah, it is. It's news. It says Fox News. It's news. And it's like, no, it was right around the time they had just lost the defamation case.
right.
I'm like, they just paid out almost $800 million because they admitted they lied about all of this stuff. They're not news. They've said in court that no reasonable person would believe any of their programming as news. They're not news. And that kind of goes back to the fairness doctrine.
Yeah,
But um, I think there needs to be something pushed through, some sort of way to regulate places like Fox News, Newsmax, and OAN, that if they don't believe their news and they're just spouting bullshit like this, they shouldn't be allowed to use news in their channel name
yeah, yeah, yeah.
or call their programming news at all.
That would be
Because
false advertising.
people like my dad believe 100% it says news, so it must be the news.
Right, right. Well, Ed and I've talked about this before, and I think the whole concept of network news and cable news, the way we get it, is maybe going to go by. It's going to continue to sink in popularity because as younger people come up, they they use media totally different than somebody my age would. You know, we'd sit and watch the network news and now cable news and stuff. Nobody watches no young people don't watch the news anymore. They get it from TikTok or they get it from Facebook. And the problem is that TikTok has the same problem with the programming they have that the media has. You have crazy fucks and you have normal people. And it's just still a matter of somebody determining who they're going to watch and who they're going to believe. And still, there are people like your dad or any number of other people that just don't understand the difference. And they figure if it's on the TV, it's got to be real.
Yeah. Um, Well, and there's something about TikTok that I've noticed. I've seen a lot of creators talking about where um, they can stitch like I think it was Tom Powell Jr. or Hawk or one of them got dinged for a violation for stitching or duetting a
Right.
video
Right.
for something that was said or done in the video they stitched or duetted that they linked in their own video. They got the
Right.
violation for that,
Right.
but the original video didn't get dinged.
Yeah. I heard one, I can't remember her name. Her name is Corsos and something. Um, she's very good. And she was claiming now that with TikTok, a lot of the, a lot of the, oversight on the videos is being done by AI now. And I can kind of bet that it's true. I don't get many violations, surprisingly, with the shit I say. I don't get many violations. But I did a video earlier yesterday and they didn't take it down, but they cut out the audio, which I never understood. You take out the audio, you might as well take the fucking thing down because it's of no value. Um, but I was trying to figure out why they took that one down and all the other shit down. And it was because I, the only way I can think of how it was, uh, I've learned a lot about TikToks. You got to be careful what you title it, and you got to be careful what your hashtags are. I one time did one uh, where I said, "What a dumbass," and I was going to talk. I was talking about myself, but because I said the word dumbass, um, I was presumably calling somebody a dumbass. They didn't know it was me. They took it down. But they took this video down because I was talking about what we talked about earlier about Donald Trump quoting Adolf Hitler. And I said the name Adolf Hitler. And if it is truly AI and they're just picking up words, that's why they took it down. Um, so we're, we're, we're dealing with a certain amount of censorship. And there was nothing wrong with the video. I was just telling the news story that everybody else was talking about. But we have the same problems in TikTok and Facebook, where we do have a certain amount of censorship um, that that isn't really tied to anything real. It's just technology deciding that's wrong, this is right. But the funny fucking thing about it is those things that are wrong, they don't seem to get hit, like you're saying. Like I've been getting comments for the last 3 weeks. Somebody's impersonating your account. Okay. I got 3 or 4 people out there trying to sell crypto coins to my followers because they have Rashina Boomer, take out the L or add a number or something like that. And people say, "Do you have another account?" No, it's fake. Just report and block. I've had people reporting in mass, these people, and they're still up. They find no fucking, uh, uh, they find no problem with somebody using my picture, a variation of my name, and trying to impersonate me. Yet when I say the word Adolf Hitler in it, they'll take that motherfucker down. There's got to be something more reasonably done, especially with the people who are just spewing bullshit. That's dangerous, and like you say, people just believe what they hear. If they see it on the internet, see it on TV, it's real. I got to believe it. And then they start spouting it.
Yeah, I've been noticing a lot of. I haven't seen any fake accounts of yours, but there's been other people that I follow. I've been noticing a lot of fake accounts. Some are pretty easy to spot. Um, one of the ones I've been seeing a lot is where they do the split screen
Yeah.
and they're doing a craft on one side or
Right.
playing a video game or something, and then they're running somebody else's audio on the other. And if they weren't using, like, if it was a video of yours and using your profile pic with some variation of your name and like that, it wouldn't bother me so bad. But I don't like those kind of videos anyway, so I just go and I block all those.
Right.
I've seen other ones where they use, like you said, very similar um, versions of the person's name. I
Right.
block them all anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying, and it's not a very good way of taking things down that are just fraudulent or what have you. And I think when we get past 2024 and we get rid of Donald Trump and all the Republicans and we get control of the House and the Senate, we've got a huge problem with our media in general. And I'm talking about the internet, and I'm talking about cable news and network news. Um, if there's anything in this country that divides this country, it is the media, because everybody's telling a different story. You can know something, go to your dad, and he's never heard it before. It's not his fault because he's watching a different source than you are. But if nobody has the same story in this country, we can never unify the country. And that's what we really need to do to get anything fucking done.
Oh, definitely. But not only that, even on the mainstream media, I was looking at CNN's website earlier before we got on the podcast. And well, here's how the Supreme Court might save Donald Trump on the 2024 ballot, or something like that. They're still trying, even though we just had a major win,
Right.
and there's a chance with this case from Colorado, it could kick him off the ballot nationwide. They're not really talking about that. They're spinning it back around that the Supreme Court could save him and get him reelected.
They need that drama. They need that, like I said, they're like a fight promoter where they've got to, no matter how weak the one opponent is, they've got to build them up just to make it look like it's a good show and get everybody to pay attention. I will tell you this, though, based on what I've seen in the media, they're going to play this game and give Donald Trump a hope and a prayer, even when he doesn't deserve it. But there's going to come a point in the next year as we get closer to the election and it becomes apparent that what's going to happen and Joe Biden's going to win and the Democrats are going to win, then everything's going to switch, and all these media outlets are going to start piling on because
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be the big news. That's going to be the thing that gets their attention. We took you all the way to this point, scared the shit out of you. Now we're going to save you by telling you exactly what's going on. And that's the whole manipulation with the media. It's just they're just fucking with your heads.
Oh yeah, because they need you to tune in every day for clicks on their website or views on their channel or whatever, so they can sell you ads, so they
Right.
can so they can justify the ad revenue to on you know oh, I'm going to charge you $10,000 for 30 seconds of airtime every Tuesday at this time slot or what have you. They have to justify it by having enough views. Same with, well, we want to put an ad before our videos on every
Right.
video we show on CNN. Well, we got to justify what we're collecting for money for that ad by making you tune in and click on the thing. It's ridiculous. I get most of my news from TikTok.
I get more and more of my news. Basically, what I do is I'll get a story idea, and then I'll dig in the places I trust for information, and I'll put together the story that way. I don't get the whole story typically from TikTok because I will see people on TikTok spew some story that's really a big story, and then I'm thinking to myself, if I go Google that shit, I don't see the story anywhere else. Somebody just pulled that out of their ass and they're trying to sell it. I see that on TikTok a lot, reporting things, everything from Donald Trump having a heart attack and dying to something else, and you got to be careful of that because for
Yeah,
somebody like us, if we find out that something bad happens to Donald Trump, we're going fucking great. Let's get on board. And I've seen legitimate TikTokers get caught up in that and say, "Oh, great, great, great! I got to be the first one to report it." They don't check it, and you got to check that shit because
yeah.
if it sounds too good to be true, it is too fucking good to be true.
Well, for the most part, that's why it depends on who I'm hearing it from, but then I will double check a lot of it
Absolutely.
unless it's an area where I don't have a lot of expertise that I'm leaning on them to break it down.
Right.
Uh, Legal Dad and Hawk when it comes to issues. In some of my emails, I've mentioned muscles and nursing,
Right.
like with the issue out of Texas, we was talking about them going after that they could cancel the nursing licenses of some of these nurses and stuff. It's like, oh, I had no idea, but he's a nurse. He knows that what some of these dangers are. I'm relying on his knowledge of that area to be my information, but I still at least backed up the rest of the story somewhere else. That okay,
Right.
the nuts and bolts of the story were this woman needed help, needed the abortion, and the court said screw you, and they're still looking into a criminal case. I got that from 10 different sources.
Right. Right.
The only part I
Exactly.
took from him was the part about the licensing, and he might be the only one to report on it because that's where he specializes and that's what he cares about.
Right. Well, and I would tell people too, even if you're watching me, I'm doing the best I can to be totally accurate and know exactly what's going on. But understand, I'm can be wrong. I try not to be wrong. I try to be on top of it. I don't talk about things I'm not absolutely sure about, but I can be wrong. So I would suggest anybody who watches me, or I would say Hawk or Legal Dad, because I've seen stuff they both, well, not Legal Dad. Legal Dad knows his shit, but I've seen Hawk say some things. They go, it doesn't sound right or isn't couched right. And I'll check it out. And anybody watching me, if you feel funny about something or it doesn't make sense, you should check it out. And if you check it out and find out I'm wrong, please fucking tell me because I'm happy to admit it and change it because I want to be accurate. I don't want to just be popular with followers. I want to be doing something for the betterment of what we've got going here. You got to take everything with a grain of salt. If there's any kind of bent on somebody telling you something, you should check it out. And let's be honest, as much as people might trust me, I do have a more left-sided bent. And that doesn't mean what I'm saying is wrong, and I'm hoping it's not. But if you question it, check it out. By all means, I'm more than happy for people to check me out.
Oh, I agree. You should double check a lot of the stories. And just because a lot of the people I follow are more left leaning, um, that doesn't mean that the people on the left are always correct.
No,
You know,
no, no, definitely not.
we got fuck ups on our side too. Look at was it Menendez, I think was his name, the one who
Right.
got caught with the bribery thing. That's just one example. We have issues on the we've got stuff we've got to take care of, but by far and away, they're better than the current alternative. Um, but I think we're gonna have to keep doing what we're doing, like you say all the time, and hold them accountable when they're in power, because it's not going to be rainbows and unicorns and
Yeah.
everything's not going to be perfect just because of, you know we knocked the Republicans back a little bit. Um,
Well,
there's
and
a
with
lot of work.
with me, you also have to take into consideration all the money that the DNC and George Soros is pouring into my bank accounts. I mean, how
Oh
can
yeah.
I possibly be unbiased when I'm being made uh, millions by these two people? It always fun. It's funny. People will come on my page and they will say, "Yeah, he's just paid for by George Soros." How the fuck do I know George Soros? I'm an old guy sitting in my living room. Do you really honestly fucking believe that? And how come it was even worse when they said, "Oh yeah, Taylor Swift is tied to George Soros." Fucking Taylor Swift's probably got more money than George Soros.
Oh, probably. Did you see? It was it Pennsylvania spent several days and a whole bunch of money holding hearings of something about doing. I don't remember what it was all about. I think they were doing something to honor Taylor Swift or something, and they spent days of their time, you know, that they could be voting on anything else, just talking about her.
Yeah.
And of course, the Republicans were all against her and this and that. And now there's a conspiracy theory out saying that, what was it? Her relationship with Travis Kelsey was staged by the NFL to make the NFL more popular or something. The NFL doesn't need help.
No.
Not like that.
And Taylor Swift certainly doesn't need any help. And you know,
No.
and even if it was staged, Because back in the old days, they'd stage relationships between Rock Hudson, who was gay, and some beautiful woman. Who cares? What's that got to do with anything? The entertainment business is doing what they do. They entertain. They might hype stuff. I don't give a shit. What does that have to do with fascism? It's fucking ridiculous.
Well, but see, it's a lot of those talking points are coming from the right because they're scared of Taylor Swift.
And you know
They
what?
are
I don't know much
scared.
about her. I don't know much about her music, but I love that girl. And somebody gave me shit about calling her a girl because she's 34. Well, ma'am, I'm 63. I have a son that's 36 and a son that's 30. She's a girl to me, and I mean that with all endearments. I fuck that. Don't even call me about that. But I love this kid because I don't know much about her music, but she's saying, I believe this. Fuck you. I'm going to do what I want to do. And it's not hurting her. They want to try to. I love how the Republicans want to try to smear her or make her look bad. Good luck with that, motherfucker. That's not going to work.
Oh yeah. Well, like one of the things is, and I don't know everything about this story, but I heard parts of it. Apparently, there was some issue with her previous record label, so I think she started her own
Yeah, yeah,
or something like that. And her first so many albums, um, she's fighting to get like the bulk of the rights to the and the credit for the money with the songs.
right.
And it was a mess. So I heard she's re-recording
Yeah,
all on her own album on her under her own label. And I'm assuming she's doing something like adding a lyric, making it a live version. I'm assuming, I don't know. Again, I don't know everything about what's going on there, but just so she can get the music out under her own control. And she's saying, we're not going to do things the way we used to do them anymore.
right. Well, what happened was I don't know what her previous label was, but she was represented by a big time manager. He's the one that found Justin Bieber, and then he was Taylor Swift's manager, guy by the name of Scooter Braun, and somehow surreptitiously or somehow he bought all the rights to Taylor Swift's music, and that pissed her off. And he did it behind her back, and she's angry about it. So she's saying, fuck it, I'm going to re record all that music and sell it as new, and then nobody needs to buy the old stuff. She's going to get her piece that she deserves because she was fucked over in the music business. Having worked in the music business, if you haven't been fucked over in the music business, you ain't in the music business because that's what they do. And so she's just trying to undercut. And that's the great thing about her because she is so successful and has so much money. She wants to put a movie out about a concert movie. She doesn't go to the movie company. She said, fuck it, I'll fund it myself. I'll hire the people, I'll pay the people, I'll buy the equipment or rent the equipment and do it herself. And then it's a fucking hit on top of it. A lot of people don't like Taylor Swift in the entertainment business because she's circumventing all the fucking power people that had to control everything. And now nobody's got control on her. And that's pissing those folks off too.
Exactly. She's showing that, hey, the way we did things for years isn't necessarily the right way or the only way to do things.
No.
And she's causing people, and especially young people, to look at things differently. Um, and it's to a lot of people in power, it's scary, especially
Oh,
Republicans.
well, I've said that before. I said Taylor Swift, this one young woman, is more powerful, has more impact on this country than any other politician, Democrat or Republican. Nobody even comes close to the impact on this country that she has, and that's including Donald Trump. And she's in an interesting position here because we know that millennials and Gen Zs are going to be a big part of the election in 2024, and in 2028 they'll be the majority of the voting bloc. So Taylor could run for fucking president in 2028 and probably fucking win. She won't because she's not crazy, but the point is uh, both sides are Republicans certainly are getting their ass whipped by this, this young woman, and it's killing them. And their natural tendency would try to smear her because that's the only thing they know how to do, and they can't even do that. There's nothing they can do with her, so it's driving. them nuts. And I'm hoping that she gets even more involved between now and the election because she will decimate them.
Well, one of the things I know, uh, she was talking about getting out and voting,
Yeah.
and she never, at least in anything I saw, which wasn't a lot, but I never saw or heard anything where she was saying vote for one candidate or another,
No,
or
no.
vote for anybody, or vote for this party, vote for that party. All she was saying is get out and do it. And it's scaring the hell out of establishment Republicans because, like you said, the young people are the soon to be the biggest voting bloc. And they break 75% Democrat
Right. Exactly.
for now.
Now I'm trying to remember how many people. I mean, didn't she get like 100,000 people to register in a short period of time when she just said go out and register? They fucking did it.
I I don't know. I don't know what that number is, but it was a lot. Um, and getting that many young people out and involved in saying, "Hey, you want to be changed? This is how you get change." She's not saying one way or the other. Just whatever you think we need to do for change, get out and vote. And that message by itself is huge. Um, like I remember back, I used to be a huge wrestling fan
Yeah,
in the late '90s, early 2000s, and they had a big push. It was the SmackDown Your Vote campaign
that's right. I remember
for
that. My kids
for
were big fans.
several years. They were out pushing every couple of years. "Hey, let's get out," and they weren't pushing aside either. Just get out and do it. Get involved. They would have voter registration booths or voter information booths set up at their events, um, and just getting people out and being part of the process. And I think that's huge, because it's the only way we, as people on the left and um, rationally minded people, can win this thing is just getting people out who would normally be, uh, what's the word I'm looking for?
Apathetic.
That's the word I'm looking for. Apathetic about it. They were like, oh, it's okay. Things are going to stay the same. It'll
Right,
be fine.
right. Well,
And you just got,
we already saw that in 2020. An unprecedented amount of people went out and voted, and that was strictly out of fear of Donald Trump getting back in. If you throw in some motivation from people they trust and care about, it's fucking over.
oh yeah. On top of that, once again the clip is making the rounds about Ken Paxton in Texas,
Right,
talking about how he blocked 2.5 million mail-in ballots in just one county in Texas. And he
right.
said, if I hadn't blocked all those mail-in ballots, Donald Trump would have lost. And he said the election, but I think he meant, and I hate doing this but I'm pretty sure what he meant was Donald Trump would have lost the election in
In
Texas.
Texas, yeah, yeah,
I think he meant Texas. I hate trying to assume what he meant because Donald Trump, as we know, did lose the presidential election. But I think he was only talking about the state of Texas and their electors. We could
yeah,
have flipped potentially because all the areas he targeted were all blue counties.
right, right. And
We
there,
could have flipped Texas blue.
it's interesting too. This is where the abortion issue comes in, and I really think that's the biggest issue in 2024. Um, we listen to Ken Paxton or old white men or old white women talking about abortion. Should it be illegal? Should it not be illegal? People need to be talking about it are people like Taylor Swift and the people that follow them, because abortion is beyond people like me or people of my generation. We don't have a fucking dog in the fight. Those people have to know what's going on and they have to decide whether they agree with what's happening or disagree. And if they disagree, vote accordingly. And I think that's what's going to happen. We've got a lot of young people that have futures and thinking about having families or not having families. This is who it's going to impact. If I live 20 years and die, I'm not going to probably deal with an abortion issue, but those people that follow Taylor Swift, they all are going to be impacted by it. And as long as they know that, they're not going to vote Republican. They're not going to limit their freedom and take away their own constitutional right. They're just not going to do it.
Well, it's like I think I mentioned in the email. I know you and Old Soul were talking about too about the um, the exceptions in some of these state laws. People like Katie Cox in Texas, she voted. The way I understand it is she supported the abortion ban because she felt safe
Right.
because there was an exception. And then when she needed it, she found out, oh, these exceptions aren't really exceptions.
No,
And I
they're
think
just talking points.
the more these stories get out there, I think that was their only saving grace on these bans. It was that, oh, there's always these exceptions. Well, people are starting to see through that. And the more, like you said, if Taylor Swift came out and started talking about all that, I think you would have a bigger wave of blue voters, young blue voters,
Yep.
than you would ever believe. But I also don't know if she wants to use her platform to do that.
Well, the one thing I will say about Taylor Swift is that she probably wouldn't come out and say that directly, but I have learned something about her business wise and public relations wise. She's smarter than any fucking politician. She knows what the fuck she's doing. And whatever she's able to do between now and 2024, I have a feeling she's going to do it and she's going to have a big impact. She won't just come out and say, "Oh, they're taking abortion away from us." But she'll know how to couch this and know how to get the message out. Because, when I saw her documentary, I was really taken by the fact that all these white men were trying to tell her, "Oh, don't do that, don't do this because it'll be bad for your business." And she said, "I don't care. This is important to me. I'm going to say what I think." And that's the kind of integrity we need in this country and we see very infrequently. So I have a lot of respect for anyone, whether it be Taylor Swift or any other human that shows the integrity and sticks by it. Liz Cheney, I don't like how she thinks, but I do appreciate the integrity. If we get some more integrity back into this country, we could get things straight pretty quickly.
Oh, I agree. I think we also need to get back to, at least in politics, back to how it used to be back in even in the 80s, 90s, where, a lot of the issues, there were some sticking point issues where it was a matter of, you know, oh, I really don't want to support that issue or this issue. But, you know, it was all the bulk of the fighting was about how much it should cost,
Right,
not whether we should do anything.
right,
Um, and there was a lot more compromise across the aisle. I would like to see us getting back to that. Um, but then on top of it, I think you and Ed were talking about it, that we need to have more accountability for what we spend in this country, especially on our defense contracts.
right,
Um, what was the one jet, like $1 trillion over budget, 10 years behind schedule, and they're still pushing forward with it?
right. That's ridiculous. The technology is probably outdated by now. It's been in the
Yeah.
works for 10 years.
And we're still pushing forward. I mean, and these contractors know, well, we only have 3 or 4 companies that can even make planes.
Right,
So you're going to come back to us no matter what. We'll just take our sweet time and chalk up the bill, this and that, and you'll just pay it. The government will just pay it. They'll just write us a check. And I know part of that generates our economy and pushes things forward. But you want to start talking about fiscal responsibility. And I don't have nothing to go on but my gut feeling on this. If we could shore up some of the waste in our military budget for things
yeah,
like projects that are way over budget and behind schedule, you could probably fund college through a bachelor's degree for every student that wanted one. You could probably fund universal health care for every American, a universal basic income, and probably universal food stamps if you needed to. Just in the waste that goes into our defense budget.
right. If you took out the waste in the defense budget and you made people that were wealthy actually pay taxes and not give them tax breaks, we would have plenty of money to do all those things. So common sense would tell you, well, why don't we do that? Well, because we got people that are grifting and people that are doing favors for their friends and making sure their rich friends get richer. And that's the problem. And it's not just Republicans that have done that. It's Democrats too, leading up to 2015. We've got a mess in Washington, D.C., over and above the dumpster fire Donald Trump and his people are. We've got a mess there that needs to be cleaned up. And now that we all know about it, this should be the time we go, fuck it. That's why I tell people if Donald Trump goes away and the Republicans go away, I still got plenty to talk about because there's plenty of fucking trouble in D.C. that we need to address.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's so much going on both sides of the aisle. But even if you get rid of the Republicans, it wouldn't be more than a cycle or two. There'd be another party that would come to power to replace the Republicans,
Right.
to challenge the Democrats, because you can't let one party have that much control for that long, because they're not going to put our bet if they have complete control of government and, like, unopposed majorities in both houses for too long, they won't get anything done for us.
Yeah, you don't want any political party to get fat and lazy. Otherwise, they might do something stupid like not codify Roe v. Wade.
Right.
That's exactly what we saw there. They had better things to do than codifying Roe v. Wade. They believed nothing was going to happen. And of course, it does happen. And now they're standing there holding their dick going, oh shit, we should have done something. We can't afford to have people representing us this way. They have to have some foresight and make sure they protect the situations and not get lazy and worry about shit that's going to put money in the hands of their benefactors. But we have it on both sides. It's just much worse with the Republicans at this point.
Oh, I agree. I think part of the problem is, though, the Republicans have gotten worse thanks to Donald Trump, in part about being able to hide it. He
Yeah, they,
brought it out to the light of day, and instead of backing away from him for whatever reason, they kept pushing forward with him and continued to expose how bad things really were. Where if they would have stepped away from him, gotten rid of him when they had the chance, maybe with his first impeachment, maybe some of their corruption would have stayed behind closed doors.
right. Well, yeah, they've gone through the corruption and the criminality stage and they've gotten away with it. So they got bold and they said, "Well, let's go full fascist." And that's what happens when people aren't accountable for things. They redouble their attempts. Well, if I can get away with this, then I'll get away with that. And that's what the Republicans are doing now. The corruption and criminality has always been there, but now they think, "Fuck it, we can control everything by just demanding it or controlling the narrative." And the Democrats are fully capable of doing the same thing. So we have to think ahead and be careful of that.
Oh, very much so, very much so. I mean, event, I think things are going to progress, especially here in the next few years, as we already have some of the one or two of the youngest possible members in the House
Right.
that are Gen Z.
Right.
As
Oh,
they come
good.
up more and more, pushing their way into politics, it's going to be they're going to be the ones pushing for the changes, and they're not going to want to do things the way the old guard did them.
Right.
And you're going to see some changes in politics, and I think it's going to only be for the better.
I do too. And these young people, some of these young people are really, really good. And I think after the 2028 election, the House of Representatives and the Senate are going to be unrecognizable as to what we have today. They aren't going to look anything like we have today. And it's going to be a good thing. It's going to be a positive thing. That's why I feel so confident that we're going down the right path and we're headed the right direction. And we'll get there eventually. It takes some time, but we will get there. Eric, I'm going to wrap things up for the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for coming in. It's always a pleasure to have you on to offer your insights. Everybody that comes on offers different insights, and it's very helpful to me, and I think enjoyable and helpful to the audience. So I appreciate you coming in.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a blast.
Yeah, you're not quite as pleasant to look at as Old Soul, but you you offer a different you offer a different. I mean, Old Soul is just one of these people to lull you into comfort, you know? It's smooth
Oh,
talk.
yes.
It's a little different when we get two old white guys talking. It's not quite as smooth, but hopefully we cover the topics that people are interested in, and I think we have. So if I don't talk to you before then, or I didn't get an email, Merry Christmas to you. I hope you have a great holiday.
Same to you and your family and all the people listening.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fun with grandkids. It's a game changer. It's not as, you know, it's not just normal holidays. Now it gets a little exciting when the 3-year-old we get to watch them open up stuff. So I'm excited about that. All right. So the folks listening, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. Hope you have a great day. And of course, we will be back as always tomorrow.